Everything about this should have been the perfect setup for one of the best underdog stories that you've ever heard. We're talking about a scrappy little brewery from Scotland, two childhood buddies who set up shop in a garage. They had big dreams, didn't sleep, and they had attitude, and they were willing to take on the world and give them the finger. That's the type of origin story that sets you up and makes you want to root for them. But just like a lot of stories out there, the journey from the origin story to where they ended are two completely different things. And what you realize is that in that entire journey, this is not an underdog story. It's more of the same old stuff that we've been seeing for the last 5 decades. It's the same founder grift that we've seen 100 times. So what are we talking about? What we're talking about is the story of BrewDog. And the BBC did a pretty extensive report on what happened with BrewDog and what was behind its collapse. It didn't collapse because their dream went wrong. It collapsed because late-stage capitalism keeps rewarding men who can sell a myth, cash out early, and then leave the workers and small investors holding the bag, stuck with the bill. So what exactly happened? Well, you have two founders, James Watt and Martin Dickey. You can find them all over the place. They have pretty big social presences everywhere. And they pitched themselves as outsiders who were going to disrupt the beer industry. And when they started out, it was working. Everyone loved their origin story. You had the garage setup, you had the sleepless nights, you had the swagger, you had the feeling that this wasn't just beer, it was rebellion in a bottle. And on top of all of that, you have all of the brilliant marketing stunts that James ran. Had a tank run through downtown. They had taxidermied squirrels with beer stuffed in them that were being thrown everywhere. And you've seen tons of stuff like this all over YouTube and other places where everybody is just pushing the envelope in being edgy and loud and anti-establishment. And that's how they built their brand. Now, keep in mind, some of the story already had some holes in it. James, one of the founders, pitched himself as the son of a fisherman when the reality is that his dad was a millionaire and often helped support the business in its early days. So the whole scrappy origin story looks cool from a distance, but once you get up close and start scratching at the edges, things start to change. That origin story and all of their antics helped establish them as an underdog, as an anti-establishment punk group that was going to stick it to the man. And that became their identity. And because they were so effective in selling that identity, people didn't ask as many questions as they should. And that's where things get interesting. They weren't just selling beer. They were selling the feeling that if you bought in, you were part of a movement, not just a customer, somebody who had a stake in the game, somebody who could also ride their coattails and stick it to the man as well. Because as we all know, we're living in the same world. And what have we seen? We've seen rich people in every industry step on the little guy and crush them into dust. And they were selling the image that you could join them, invest in them, and be part of a movement that ends up sticking it to them. And in the process, you end up better off as well. As this continued to grow, they had their own investing scheme where customers were shareholders. As someone in the US, the approach that they were using sounds really similar to what the Green Bay Packers do. Although the Green Bay Packers have actual backing versus a story and a brand image that they're telling in terms of investing in the company. When you look at what BrewDog did, it was brilliant branding. It told regular folks that they're not just funding a business, that they were joining a revolution. And we've seen that move all over the place with every sort of business. A couple of guys get on stage, there's pyro and loud music. They tell you the old world is broken. They tell you that they're the rebels. They tell you that they're building the future. And they wrap the entire story of greed in the language of vision and revolution and build a community around that fairy tale. And that works for a little while. And it worked really well. 200,000 investors put in over $100 million into the company. The company expanded, the brewery got bigger, they added more bars, their valuation started to climb, the founders became celebrities, the main founder has a social presence that's ridiculous. And then the opportunity to sell out happens, and they took it. They decided, hey, this underdog story has taken us far enough, let's get out while the getting's good. In 2017, the two founders sold nearly a fifth of their shares to a private equity firm. And as soon as you heard me mention private equity firm, you know what's coming next, don't you? The two founders got $50 million each. Life-changing money. They went from scrappy underdogs, which is the image that they sold, to overnight millionaires. And that's where everything changed. They got the giant payday. And what happens is that money doesn't change you. It allows you to become who you really are. And understanding that helps you understand why this brewery fell over. Because what happened after the fact? What you see after that cash infusion is all sorts of things start to change. The founders are making off great. What about everybody else that invested in it? The workers, the customers, the little investors who believed the pitch. And that's why this story is just like every other tech bro story or business story that you've heard countless times over the last 50 years. Because what happens is that when you take away all of the branding around this beer company, you have the same exact template that we've seen from everyone else. And every other business messiah that you've seen out there who promises to reinvent the world, that might remain the case until they get the big payday. See, they built the company on selling the dream, selling the disruption, selling the idea that they're changing everything. And when you look at behind all of that smoke, what's there? It's just vapor. It's a story with a valuation attached. And that's what the business world of today seems to reward. It doesn't reward stewardship. It doesn't reward honesty. It doesn't reward building something over time. It rewards performance. It rewards myth making. It rewards a good story. It rewards typically dudes who can stand on a stage with loud music playing and make other people confuse branding with substance. And then when the wheels come off, the same thing that you've seen over and over again shows up. The founders who got their payday exit stage left, and the company goes into bankruptcy. And who's left holding the bag? It's the workers who get an 11-minute Teams call that tells them that they've been made redundant. It's the rank and file people who absorb all of the damage that happened since the founders got their payday. There's 200,000 plus investors who are left holding the bag, who've got nothing to show for the money that they put in. That's how this story ends. This isn't an underdog story. And really, when you think about the background of one of the founders, it was never designed to be an underdog story. It was never a pull yourselves up by the bootstraps story. It was the son of a rich guy who was phenomenal at marketing, who sold a vision, built a following, and sold out at the first opportunity. And what that means is that the entire thing was built on feel-good vibes just so people could commit and invest in the vision that you're selling. And when that vision got big enough and you had the opportunity to sell out, you did so. And instead of reinvesting into the people that backed you, you took the money and ran. And when everything fell over, you can clutch your pearls or wring your hands and say how you wish things could be different, but you're not taking any of that into motion, are you? And that's what makes this story, just like every other story that we've heard. The scam gets marketed well, and the people end up paying the price.